welcome back to the channel everybody. Today I'm going to be showing you how to mix vocals just using Ableton stock plugins. Believe it or not, you don't actually need fancy plugins. Ableton has an array of bangers. So yeah, I'm going to show you how I would typically go about mixing vocals inside a D&B track. Let's go. First up, I guess, is how you arrange your vocals before you move on to the actual mixing part. Here we go. So we've got chorus, chorus harmonies, verse, verse harmonies, bridge, bridge harmonies. Easy peasy. And first of all, if you're thinking, why don't I just chuck the verse vocals and chuck them on the chorus lane vocal? Since it's just like... Since it's the same kind of one vocal take and that's theoretically going to be like the main vocal part. Well, for me personally, I like to pump the chorus just a little bit more, where that means a little bit more compression. I want it to stand out even more. Hence, I want the separate control having a separate channel. First things first, we want to get the levels right. And since these vocals are from a sample pack, I'd say the levels are pretty spot on, but we'll just have another look.
And how we want it, and how we want it, something.
To get the vocal level right, I feel like there is no wrong or right. It depends what you want. Sometimes you may want to have the harmonies just output the same volume as the main vocal. If it was like a race, I'd want main vocal to be out here and harmonies to just be creeping behind it. Support rather than both being side by side.
How we want it.
That's kind of side by side, and we just want to knock that back a little bit. So that you can hear them, they're there, but they're not over intrusive, and the main vocals for the verse. Chorus, I'd more kind of want to match that.
Even inside, you're off my mind.
Have them both at like the same level. I think that's a cool effect because you want a chorus, stack, loud, most excited kind of part of the track.
Finding ourselves miles apart, riding a current.
So I feel like the vocals and the harmonies sitting at a good level. Obviously you need context with the rest of the track. So
finding ourselves miles apart, riding a current of apathy. Even inside, you're off my mind.
I actually think that sounds fine. I'm not going to stress too much about getting the right level for the vocals at this bit because we're going to throw a bunch of effects on it. It's going to taint the vocal level just a little bit, and we can turn it up there as well if it's too quiet or too loud. So brings down a little bit.
Stay out of sight.
So you'll notice it's quite dynamic. This bit is a little bit louder compared to
Even inside, you're off my mind.
quieter level, kind of not whispered, but it's creeping in there.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Make this all easier. I'm gonna group all these vocals together
In the city.
just so I have that solo function, and let's get applying some effects. And first things first, with the main vocal, I want to chuck an EQ8 on it. And I'm going to round off this low, and you don't really need that much like sub or bass with vocals. It just kind of gets in the way, especially with like P and sounds that carry a lot of breath and pop to it. So
City, I think of you.
mostly stripped out on this vocal, which is good.
And how we city.
And how kind of that comes through.
And how we
Sounds a little bit like radio kind of effect, and that's when we're typically like stripping away the character a little bit too much, so I'm going to round it off.
and how we were.
So make sure nothing through here is coming through. And also I like to do with vocals, particularly at the start of the chain, always typically with vocals there's going to be like a low mids that you want to scoop out just a little bit, or my experience with vocals anyway at least. So I'm going to look for some rogue kind of...
And how we wanted something new.
Yeah, something around there. I know, I feel like with that particular era, there's a little bit of boxy and boominess in vocals that just really easy to scoop. Do that subtle effect right at the start of vocal chain, and it'll help just clean up the vocal for the rest of the chain. I'm not going to do anything crazy like some of this action. No, I'm just going to keep it super simple. Scoop up the bass, tidy up the mids, and then that's it. Next up is going to be our de-esser. We're going to do that with multiband dynamics. If you don't know what a de-esser is, it pretty much just takes away the sharp S's and T sounds, and you know, those typical sounds that carry a lot of high frequency energy. There's an S word for it, it's like sibilants or something like that. So we're just going to apply compression with very high end frequencies and hope to catch those sharp S's and T's and whatnot. Solo this band. There we go. There's a sharp one. We're just going to move this frequency band to try to capture that even more. We don't want to too much. That's too much. We're hearing a lot of the vocal. Just want the S's and T's, which that sounds about right. So compression, gonna have attack and release. We want the sharp attack. We want this to latch onto those sounds as soon as possible, and then let go as, maybe not as drastically as that, but fairly quickly, and then apply compression. That's gonna be a ratio, that's gonna be a threshold. So we're reducing these high frequencies by 9-ish decibels. So
Something new. and something and something and something.
This vocal doesn't carry a lot of those sharp S's and T sounds, so actually don't need to do too much to it, but just keep that in mind if your vocal recording is coming through with those sharpish sounds.
And something new.
Next up is a little bit of compression, whether you use glue compressor or compressor, up to you. I'm going to use normal compressor for this one. Don't need the EQ on. The reason why we use the multiband before the compressor, if those sharp sounds come through and they're louder than the rest of the track, then it's just going to compress everything. But if we capture those loud, sharp sounds and compress them before the compressor, then it's much more even and balanced sound. Tackles one problem before we gently squish the vocal. So rule of thumb, anywhere from like 2 to infinity, no, anywhere from like 2, maybe 10 is a bit like pushing it, like it to be around 4. Slow-ish attack, pretty fast release. This just helps give the vocal a bit more punch because it's not latching onto it as soon as possible and letting go as fast as possible. So we'll dial in the threshold and then we'll bump up the gain.
And something new.
You'll see quickly if you got too much compression, if it's just that is key, that's too much. So we just want a bit of movement with this gain reduction, which is this yellow line here.
How we wanted something new.
And we've taken away a little bit of decibels so we can bring it back up by maybe 2.
How we wanted something. Split at the core from the start, finding ourselves miles apart.
So we'll hear what we've done so far.
How we split at the core from the start, finding ourselves miles apart.
Bit more tame, bit more compressed, kind of because we're going for those effects. And
Split at the core from the start.
or if you just want to crank the compression with it,
Split at the core from the start, finding ourselves.
you'll hear that's just such a squish sound if that's the sound you're going for, or just kind of like a
Split at
little
the
bit.
core from the start, finding ourselves.
This is not really a dynamically diverse vocal track, and it's like it hasn't got peaks all over the show. It's very kind of like at the same level for the entire tape, which is very nice, and we don't have to compress it that much.
Core from the
I'm happy with that. Next up, a little bit of saturation, can't go wrong. Need like 2 or 3 dB.
core from the
We can even push it a lot because I mean,
core from
still got a lot of room to play with there.
core from the start, finding ourselves.
But I just want a little bit of drive, so I'm not going to go too hard on that yet.
Core from the start, finding ourselves miles apart, writing a.
Honestly, just leave it there. I love analog clip with saturator. It just gives it a little bit of a bump, a little bit of warmth, and then that's all there is to it. Reverb for the echo and the space and the larger than lifeness. Particularly a big fan of this ballad reverb. And then just remove the high cut, introduce the low cut. It's got a nice little ring to it. We'll dial back the dry wet so we can hear the effect and the vocal.
Core from the start, finding ourselves miles apart, writing a current of.
And lastly, I'm going to throw a little bit of delay at this as well. A little bit of maybe 4, and then narrow this in on maybe some high mids. Bit of ping pong.
Core from the start,
Dial that
finding
back.
ourselves miles apart, writing a current of.
Nice little blend of like background activity of vocal sounds happening. And yeah, let's do a before and after of all these effects.
Core from the start, finding ourselves miles apart, writing a current.
Sounds a lot more professional and just like put in a space, nice and balanced. Obviously we need to hear this in the context of the track to make sure we haven't butchered the vocal, but it's sounding good, it's sounding clean, so I don't think we have.
Core from the
I'm going to mute the harmonies because we're going to work on them next, and then just hear this as a whole.
city. Split at the core from the start, finding ourselves
Still a little bit quiet.
apart, writing a current of apathy.
You can turn this up with the compressor.
Split at the core from the start, finding ourselves miles apart, writing a current of apathy. Even inside of my mind, stay out of sight of my mind.
One thing I did forget to mention is actually auto shift. Ableton introduced a pitch correction little audio effect recently. I would chuck this after the EQ in the vocal processing chain because kind of like the EQ's tightening up, and then it hits the pitch correction software, and you haven't got any boominess of the vocals because we've stripped that away with the EQ, so it's a nice cleanish sound heading into the pitch correction software, as opposed to maybe at the end where we've got reverb, we've got delay, and then the pitch correction's working with that, and it's just, yeah, it suits being at the start of a vocal processing chain. Easy way to do this is the key of our track is F sharp minor. So just dial that in.
Split at the core from the start, finding ourselves miles apart, riding the current of apathy. Even inside.
I mean, the values aren't too swung like left or right, so.
Split at the core from the start, finding ourselves miles apart, riding the current of apathy. Even inside of my mind, stay out of sight of my mind.
Well, the vocal's pretty much in pitch. I'm just gonna dial this back just a little bit.
Split at the core.
So we just get a little bit of pitch correction, but the vocals are already on point. That is a good starting point for the verse main vocal. I'm gonna work on the harmonies. Harmonies, I literally just EQ, compress, maybe a little bit of reverb, and that's it. I don't need to do as intensive as a processing chain as this. I just literally like to sandwich it and then, yeah.
In the city, I think of.
So as you'll notice with this vocal tape, we've already got a few stacks here. If you do have separate harmonies and ad-libs, I would recommend maybe chucking this into a group and then processing them as one, like we're about to do for this. So EQ,
In the city, I think
no bass
of
again.
you.
No mids kind of there, and I don't want like high end frequencies overlapping, because sometimes if you double up with the S sounds with like two vocal takes and they're not quite in sync, it sounds a little bit strange, and you don't want to manually sync every single one of those S and T sounds, a little bit too robotic. So I like to go in here and
In the city, I think
just
of
EQ out that. So we've got the main body of the vocal coming through to accompany this main vocal.
In the city, I think of you.
I'm gonna compress the absolute shit out of this, and yeah, that is my go-to strat.
In the city, I think of you.
High ratio, fast attack, fast-ish release.
And how we
Crank the
walk.
volume. We're gonna turn that down over on the right hand side.
In the city, I think of you. And how we want it.
It's a lot of body. I'm gonna do another EQ.
In the city, I think of you.
Since this is the harmony layer, we could make it a little bit wider as well. A little bit of chorus. Actually, a little bit of phaser flanger double.
In the city, I think of you.
Yeah.
And how we walk.
Yeah, the doublet is a really cool effect for just vocal doubles, really.
In the city, how we want it.
Subtle amount with that amount, and then dry
How
wet.
we want it.
Cool, nice wide sound. Do a little bit of reverb on this, and then I think we are good to go for the verses.
How we want it. Something new.
Slight lower decay compared to the main vocal. It's not like the main showcase bit, it's accompanying it. So yeah, let's hear it.
In the city, I think of you.
Maybe a little bit wider.
And how we want it. Something new. We split at the core from the start, finding ourselves
A little bit too much.
miles apart, riding the current of apathy. Even inside of my mind.
Help bring that harmony back into check just a little bit. It was getting a little bit too carried away and loud there. So
Miles apart, riding the current of apathy. Even inside of my mind, stay out of sight of my mind.
whoa.
Even inside.
And we're suddenly switched to the non-processed vocals. It sounds a bit strange. I'm happy with that for verse starting point. I've got a couple more ideas which I'll get into later. Now we're on to the chorus. I'm going to take all these effects and hold shift, select that, hold option or alt, drag it onto the main chorus. I'm going to take the harmony effects and also do the same thing, drag it onto the main chorus. Since we've already made a starting point and we know what sounds good with this vocal, it should be easy to just tweak this and make it larger than life for the chorus. An idea I had for that is parallel compression, which new compressor, and I'm gonna slam that and then slam that and then slam this and then work the dry wet to balance that out.
Inside of my mind, stay outside of my mind.
here it's just a little bit more squished. Could bump up the saturation as well.
You're off my mind. Stay out of sight.
I'm going to introduce one more delay as well because it needs to be stacked. This is the vocal chain. Switch from sync to time. Bring this back.
You're off my mind.
A little bit like a slapback effect.
You're off my mind.
Try to bring that down.
Stay out of sight and off my mind.
That's quite cool. I feel like it's a nice, healthy, thick vocal. Do I want to adjust the reverb? No, I'm quite happy with this reverb sound. You can introduce a little bit more reverb since it's the chorus. And like I said at the start, you want the chorus to pop. So that's the goal. Chorus harmonies. Chorus is a little bit more aggressive. This double effect isn't working as well, so I'm going to dial this back. And we could use the same delay effect that we used for our main vocal, which we just did, like the slap back sound, very fast delay. And chuck this onto the harmony section. Make it wide, these two together.
You're off my mind. Stay out of sight and off my. Even inside, you're off my mind. Stay out of sight and off my mind.
Whoa, too much.
Even inside.
It's actually not working too bad now. A bit more reverb on this.
Stay out of sight.
A bit too kind of blended. Oh, this bit, I forgot about that. Same goes. We steal that processing chain from the verse and then the harmonies. I'm going to crank up the reverb just a little bit more for this since it's a special version. And maybe the delay as well. Breakdowns and bridges, you know, they're meant to be atmospheric, they're meant to be different. Just check a little bit extra reverb and delay. And yeah, that's really all the time I'm going to spend on that. This one thing I want to mention for the verses, we've got this nice little break in the vocal here. I'm going to crank up the reverb in that section just a little bit more with automation. Press A. So here's the decay, we're going to click this and then extend this out maybe 10 seconds decay. So you'll hear this. A little bit longer and really pronounce that effect. So it's gonna, so this reverb is gonna take up this silence here.
We were split at the core.
Kind of handling the background. Nice little effect. And as a group with all these vocals, a little bit EQ. Maybe that pesky mid-range again. Or the high frequencies. Typically when finding these frequencies, a lot of practice listening to vocals and working with vocals. Try to be really aggressive at first, see if you can encounter any bits that actually sound better than just no EQ, and then just dial them back a bit. I doubt you're ever going to be in situations where you need to EQ this aggressively for just the vocals as a whole, so. But little cleanup bits like that. Not too shabby. And then lastly, to glue it all together, a little bit of glue compressor, it never hurt. Threshold. Start to see the blue needle move a little bit. But remember with this group processing, we're going to be compressing the reverb as well, and the delay, so it could be a little bit kind of too squished as a whole rather than squishing the vocal, let reverb happen, whatever. You're squishing the vocal, reverb, and then squishing all that, so it's just like, be careful of that is what I'm getting at. attack is not happening fast enough. The stay out of sight is just coming in a bit too aggressive, and faster attack so the compressor can latch onto that sooner. Too fast. No, too much compression. Oh, that is sounding great. Before? We were split at the core from the start. Bit more pronounced, bit more just in your face. And with all these effects, keep in mind this is a good starting point. Everything's gonna need a bit more tweaking, you know. Have a break from the vocals, then come back and see if anything like stands out. Whether you need like less reverb, more reverb, if there's too many like sharp frequencies that are getting in the way, if your effects a little bit too over the top, etc, etc. But for me personally, this is how I typically would attack vocals as a good starting before I go ahead and tweak these little things and then make sure it's sounding super, super nice. So with that being said, hopefully you did learn a thing or two. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. I'll play this track start to finish, so you know what it sounds like. I'll catch you guys in the next tutorial. Have a fantastic day. I'll see you then. Peace!